So I just received the update from the technical team. We'll be just starting in a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, let me introduce myself. I am Shreyash Bohre, and currently I am the manager of Yoga Club IIT Bombay. I am a master's student in technology and development IIT Bombay, and we are carrying the banner of IIT Bombay and Yoga Club. And we are very grateful to Acharya Prashant ji and Prashant Advait Foundation for having agreed to our proposed theme, that is on meditation, myths and truths, decoding dhyan. So today we'll be having a panel discussion on this topic, and there always be other various questions which are moving around the topic of meditation, which the panelists can take. So the panelists consist of the students of IIT Bombay. These are undergraduation, post-graduation students combined, and these students come from a variety of fields in technology, social sciences, etc. So I'm hoping that today will be a very wonderful interaction with the youth of IIT Bombay, especially with our very special guest, Acharya Prashant ji. So we'll just start in a minute.
Recording in progress.
ठीक है। ठीक है, वो पिन कर दिया मैंने, बट ये तो दिया मैंने। कौन से आईडी पे? कौन से आईडी पे? पैफ अच्छा, आचार्य प्रशांत पे। ठीक है, एक मिनट, आचार्य प्रशांत पे मैं होस्ट ही बना दे रहा हूँ। होस्ट बना दिया मैंने। हाँ, होस्ट बना दिया। ठीक है, क्योंकि मैं अपने कंप्यूटर से भी रिकॉर्ड कर रहा हूँ और अपने कंप्यूटर के पिन में यहाँ कर रहा हूँ। आई थिंक वहाँ उनको भी शायद पिन करना पड़ेगा कि मैं तैयार हूँ। उस बंदे को पिन कर देता हूँ क्योंकि स्टार्ट तो वही करेगा, श्रेया। सो अभी फिलहाल उन दोनों को पिन कर दो, बेटर। ठीक है, हाँ, मैं ही करूँगा, पिनिंग मैं ही करूँ। अरे यार, एक तो मेरा है प्रशांत फाउंडेशन, पैफ ये कर रहे हैं। Okay.
Okay, so
Acharya is live now. Shreyash, you may start.
Yeah. So again, good evening all. I would like to welcome everybody to this panel discussion on meditation, myths and truths, decoding dhyan. with Acharya Prashantji. So I would take this opportunity to introduce our very special guest, an extraordinary person, Acharya Prashantji. Acharya Prashantji is a powerful voice of socio-spiritual awakening in today's world. He is an acclaimed Vedanta exegete and author of over 70 books, including the national bestseller Karma. An alumnus of IIT Delhi, IIM Ahmedabad, and a former civil services officer, he is an exponent of pure Vedantic wisdom, a vocal warrior against superstition and inner weaknesses, a promulgator of pure spiritual veganism, and an expounder of essential human freedom. With whole heart, I welcome Acharyaji. So now I just request Professor Neeraj Kumkarna, who is the faculty mentor of Yogastha IIT Bombay, to welcome Acharyaji with few words. Professor Neeraj. I think there are some technical glitches here. So I request Dr. Chatterjee to please go ahead with the session.
I think Professor Neeraj is with us now.
Okay. Sir has joined.
Yes, you can let him introduce Acharya.
Sure, sir.
Shreyas, can you please ask Professor Neeraj to proceed?
Yes, sir. I think, Professor, you might be on mute. Please check, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. We can hear you.
Okay. So how is the program laid out?
Hello, sir. We are Acharya Prashantji now. So we would like to invite Acharyaji and would like you to say a few words for this particular event.
Okay. Yes. So good evening, all of you. It's great to be present at a Yoga Stay event. Actually, I have after such a long time, and I mean these times are times of uncertainty. A lot of the students they don't know what holds for them. Continuously, sometimes we have online classes. We had just resumed and we're getting back on track, and again we are going back into the kind of this uncertainty mode. So in these whenever there are fluctuations outside, frequent changes in rules, sudden changes in rules, lockdown, no lockdown, our mind also is kind of in sync with those. It also moves up and down, and sometimes this uncertainty becomes unbearable. So what is the key here is one of the keys that is here to get our lives back on track, irrespective of what is happening outside, is to get our mind on track. And this dhyana, which is going to be discussed in this program, is an important aspect, and that is where it comes in. So because since this is Yogastha is primarily handling yoga activities in the campus, I would just like to quote a few things from the Patanjali Yoga Sutra itself in the context of dhyana. So what the sutra, the Vibhuti Pada, the third section of the Yoga Sutras, it starts by saying that Deshabandhas Chittasya Dharana. So when so chitta is something comprising of more than the mind. It consists of the mind and something more than that. And if you confine it to one place, they call it dhyana. And then the next sutra says Tatraikatanatha dhyanam. So, and when you are set fast in that one place with conviction and effortlessness, that is called as dhyanam. Now, this is my very limited understanding, and that is where Acharya ji comes in to explain to us these complex concepts and to help us practice them. So, we are grateful to you, Acharya ji, and welcome to guide, and we look forward to an enlightening session from you. So, by the way, I am Neeraj Kumbhakarna. I am a faculty member here in the Mechanical Engineering Department, and I am currently functioning as the faculty mentor for the Yogastha Student Yoga Club. So, very grateful to you, Acharya, for your eminent presence and offering to guide us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. I'll be glad to begin the interaction now and keenly looking forward. I suppose the students are already ready with broad topics they want to take up. So let's just begin.
Yes. We can proceed with the questions now. We can start with the question from Praveen. So, Praveen, you may please proceed and ask your question.
Namaskar Acharya ji, I am Praveen. I am a PhD bioscience student, and my question is regarding brain and mind. So, is there a difference between mind and there are proofs or case studies that we carry some memories from our past lives? So, if that is true, then how and where our memories are stored?
We do not carry any memories from our personal past lives. The memories that our bodies, our cells, our DNA carry is the collective memory of entire humankind, the entire journey of evolution. So it's not as if you, the one who is speaking to me right now, the one who identifies with his name, his body, his face, his age, his place of birth, his parents, that person does not have any particular past life. You have an infinite number of past lives. And that's not a linear thing. That's like a tree. That's like a large number of waves coalescing together and giving rise to several other small waves. None of the newly formed resultant waves can claim any of the previous and disappeared waves to be their past lives. Everything is coming from everything else. Individuality that we believe in is a myth. It is because the ego likes to be identified with this particular body, with this particular birth, that it seeks to project in the backward direction this particular birth and the consciousness related with it. Do you see what is going on? We do not live integrated lives. We are not identified with everything. Nobody can practically be. We all have strong identifications with this body, with this face, with the memories that you carry currently in this brain. Because you are strongly identified with this, that's why you want to assume that this has had a particular personal history in the past. Now, surely you do have a history, but that history is not particularly personal to you. What's your good name, please?
I'm Praveen Kant, sir.
So Praveen has had no past life in particular. There was nobody in the past, ever in the past, who died and took rebirth as Praveen today. If you want to understand where you are coming from, then you have to understand that you are the resultant of millions of lives and deaths. Every single creature that has ever been on this planet has contributed to the one you are. So if you want to talk of your past lives, then your past lives are just too numerous, just too immeasurable. They are so immeasurable that they will not leave any scope for your particular individual ego to relish. The ego loves private property, no? We all want to say, this thing is mine. This thing is mine. Right? Whereas the thing with rebirth is that everything is yours. Equally, everything belongs to everybody else as well. So this is not just yours. This belongs to everybody. Similarly, there is nothing anywhere that is not yours. Everything belongs to everybody. Any person who ever lived is present in your being in some way or the other. Right? So that's where the brain is coming from. The brain is a product of a collective evolutionary journey. Then you ask why there are differences in people's brains, just as there are differences in people's colors and heights and genders. It's a random thing. A wave arises in the sea, and every wave is a little different from every other wave. Do you want to assign a particular reason as to why a particular wave is the way it is? It is just the way it is. You could call it randomness. Or if you want to assign reasons, we said the reasons are so numerous, you will fail to list them. I suppose the query has not been fully answered because you also wanted to touch upon brain and mind, brain in context of mind. So what is it about the mind that you want to know, please?
So I want to know, like, brain is something which is very physical.
Yes.
Within my body.
Yes.
And it is said that mind is something which carries the thought. And it
mind carries thoughts. Okay.
And it has impression of different experiences that we have.
Yes. Brain too has them. Yes.
So I am not able to understand actually what is the difference between the two. Are these two words are two different entities, different things?
You see, the mind is a concept. The brain is a fact. To begin with, this is the difference. The brain will exist irrespective of what you think about it, what you say about it. I think I need a hanky. Thank you. So the brain will exist irrespective of your station in life, the time of the day, the state of your consciousness, whether you are sleeping, whether you are agitated, whether you are comatose, whether you are fully attentive. The brain is, just as this mug is. There are times when it will be hot, there are times when it will be cold, when it will be empty, when it will be full, clean, unclean, so many things, but it is. That's the brain. The mind is a concept. The mind exists in itself, and the mind can come and go. The mind can be easily laid to rest and it can disappear. The brain won't disappear. Getting it? Brain, you could say, in the human body is the physical seat of consciousness, which is the mind. But the mind is pretty much a flexible and liquid, fluid entity. It exists as long as there are impulses, thoughts, feelings. It exists only in activity. Otherwise, it is not there. The brain just is, like a piece of bread. The mind is associated with I. Whatever is happening in the mind has I at its center. This I, at some point one learns, is a bit of a fiction. Therefore, the mind really exists only as long as you want to believe in it and as long as you see some benefit in having it exist. In fact, the mind exists in a way. It thinks its existence is beneficial to itself. That kind of flexibility the brain does not have. The brain cannot just suddenly change itself, though even the brain has a certain degree of plasticity and plasticity both, and there are changes possible to it in the long run. But the mind is very, very fluid. It seeks information, and then based on its need to protect itself, it takes new identities, new forms. A point may come where it realizes that there is no need for that kind of security, no need for identifications with this and that. And then the mind just becomes still. That still mind, you can also call as no mind. The mind is still. The brain will keep functioning as per its biological nature. The mind is just watching. The brain is working. The body is working. The world is in activity. And the mind is a watcher. The mind no more needs activity. The mind no more needs movement or identification. So that's the difference between brain and mind.
Just to add on to this, it means that mind exists until there is I, there is ego with it.
Yeah. Yes. Mind is the very seat of consciousness. You cannot have anything mental going on in the usual sense without I being at its center. Even if you are thinking about some geopolitical event happening in Europe or West Asia, if you will investigate carefully, you will find that there is self-interest involved there. Your I is still present there, otherwise you wouldn't have been thinking about it. At least you would say, I'm interested in knowing about it, and hence I am thinking about it or seeking information about it. So the very movement of the mind is self-centered, centered on I, centered on the ego.
Okay. Now we have a counter question from Shreyash. Shreyash, just hold on 1 second. I will pin you to the screen. Yes, Shreyash, you may just hold.
Namaskar, Acharya ji. I am Shreyash Bohre, and currently I am pursuing Masters in Technology and Development at IIT Bombay. Final year student here. So, my counter question is on the context of the statement that you say that uh, mind is something which comes and goes. So, there is a certain stimulus that creates or that leads to mind coming into action. Is it?
Yes, obviously. The mind is so very dependent on the surroundings and the stimuli.
And then there are thoughts because of which we are able to perceive the mind. Is it?
Yes, you cannot know the mind if it is not in action. Thought is the action of the mind.
So, what is the state if we are devoid of any thought? And so, what is your or mine identity in that state? And if one goes beyond saying that in order to get the state where mind is completely absent, so what would be the act of that person? I mean, how does one go to achieve that state?
You see, thought is both the lock and the key. Thought is just not the prison and its walls. Thought is also the way, the equipment you can get out of the prison. So it's a bit too early to talk of a thoughtless state. If you become thoughtless in your current state, your imprisonment within your dualistic prison will become permanent. So thought has to be used, at least initially, to understand what is going on. Because you see, who are we right now as we discuss all this? We are people who believe in our physical identities. We are people who live in a dualistic consciousness. I am talking to you, right? There are two. You are in front of a screen. There are so many others. All this is duality. And we believe in this. And we actually have no option but to believe in this. If we just say, oh, I don't believe in this, that would be hypocrisy. Because we do. We do. If I just go about saying, I am not, or aham brahmasmi, it would not only be untrue, but actually dishonest. So, because we live in this particular way, we have to use thought as a means to investigate what all this is about. Who are you? Who am I? What are these bondages? What is the world? What are temptations, desires, fears, all these things? Only then you come to a point where you can talk of dropping even the method that you needed for liberation, because now you are already liberated. The method for liberation is thought itself. It would be not very wise to drop your weapons before the war is won. It's only after you have won the war that you find that the weapon is needless. Thought is a very important faculty available to you. Right? But when you dive straight away into top class spiritual literature, you find a lot of reference to thoughtlessness, nirvichar state. That is obviously the ultimate state. But you cannot just wish or dream your way to that state. Given who you are, and that is the fact of your existence, you have to work your way to that state. And if you have to work your way to that state, thought is useful. So I would advise, instead of asking what is a thoughtless state or how to drop thought, you have to first ask yourself, is your thought in the first place sharp enough? Exercise more thought, think deeply. And the think with deep and penetrating thought is that thought gets exhausted or fulfilled. And then you get a glimpse of what you can call as thoughtlessness. Thoughtlessness, therefore, is not the absence of thought as such. Thoughtlessness is the fulfillment of thought. Thoughtlessness is when thought is not needed anymore. You cannot randomly drop thought. People attempt to do that. If you just randomly drop thought, you just become unthoughtful, unthinking. And that's not a very nice thing to say about someone. That fellow behaves in unthinking ways. Right? Think and think rightly. Think so sharply that the need for thought is brought down to zero at a point. There is nothing left to think. I've come upon something that is beyond thought. Thought has been stunned. Thought has worked so hard, it now wants to go to sleep. Thought has fulfilled its purpose. Right thought is needed. That is classically called as Atma Vichar, or even just Vichar. If you go to Raman Maharshi, he will just say Vichar is needed. You begin by asking, what is all this and to whom is all this? What is this and to whom is this? And if it is to me, what do I get by having it existent to me? Why must it exist for me at all? Surely I have a stake somewhere in having it mean something to me, having it exist for me. And it's not easy to inquire this way. It requires a lot of attention. It requires hard work. It's a bit similar to solving a tough mathematical problem. In fact, tougher than that, because here the inquiry is inwards. And we are not accustomed to that. We have not had enough practice of that since our childhood. We know how to penetrate into things outside of us, but we have not been educated to look into our own minds and penetrate into our own intentions and desires and the entire inner structure. So thought is very much needed. Right? When thought has to sublimate, it will on its own. You don't have to plan for it. Be a sharp thinker, be an inward thinker. Whenever you look at something, always think of the thing's relation to yourself. Nothing can exist for you if you don't have a stake in it. This sounds unbelievable to begin with, but I invite you to investigate it.
So, Acharya-ji, does stake in one way talk about attachment here?
Of course, attachment and dependency. And so, that's how the mind exists, in a false sense of duality. Mind is some kind of a half eye. seeking its counterpart, its missing half, in a world that it projects on its own. The mind is seeking its own missing half. It's just that it's seeking at the wrong place. It's seeking there, in this and that and that and that. And whatever the mind looks at, forms a relationship with, it obviously has a stake in. There would be attachment, there would be fear, there would be greed, all the usual tendencies of the mind.
Thank you, Acharya.
Okay. So as okay, we have one counter question from Abhilashji. I'll just pin him. Yes, Abhilash, I have pinned you. Whenever Acharya is ready, you can proceed.
Ready.
Pranam Acharya. So we have spoken about how brain is part of evolution, and at some point mind came into the picture where it starts associating itself with I, and we also told that consciousness is seat of mind, and mind's tool or the thing that comes through mind is thought. And we also told that mind uses thought to some extent to retain itself.
Yes.
Right? To strengthen itself, to secure itself, things like that, right? So, and we are also telling that use the same thought to help mind to resolve itself as well.
Yeah.
Right? And if we do that sharply, we might come to a state where mind don't retain itself, right? But looks like we are kind of fighting with the mind, right? Like mind wants to retain itself, but we are kind of we are kind of conflicting with it to help itself not to retain. So
the mind has an inner conflict. On the one hand, it wants to come to its end. On the other hand, it wants to exist to see its end. It wants to exist even in its end to enjoy the state after the end. That is just foolish. That is just unwise. So the mind has to be counseled. The sheer impossibility of fulfilling paradoxical conditions has to be counseled to the mind. That's where thought also comes in the picture. You use thought a lot. And what I called as fulfillment of the thought is nothing but a revelation of inadequacy of thought. Thought exists by promising that it can bring your inner loneliness and your sense of hollowness to an end. It says you have problems within, I can solve your problems. No, that promise is never deeply, fully tested by us. Because thought is making all these promises, the nice thing probably is to give thought a chance. All right, now that you're saying that you can solve my problems, proceed. Show me how you can solve my problems. And that's when you come to the limitations of thought. And after that, thought has nowhere to hide. It has to just raise its hands and surrender. And then that's a different way of being, a way of being in which you are not running after impossible promises. When you realize the fact of the body and the way it operates, and you look at it as you look sometimes without attachment at an animal, its ways, its maneuvers, its desires, it comes into existence, it dies. I was looking at this short video. It was a series of short videos, actually. And all these videos involved leopards and lions and tigers chasing wild beasts and deers and pigs and zebras, buffaloes, and hunting them down. And the whole process was quite, graphic. The recording was very vivid. And I read the comments there. Nobody seemed to mind that the deer's life has been lost. Why? Because you realize it's a thing in Prakriti. It happens. It happens. Yes, from where we look at it, it appears very gory. And you want to save the little animal being killed. Our sympathies are with the loser. But I found it noticeable that hardly any of the comments to those videos talked of pity or anger towards the predator. When you can look at your own life in the same way, that's when there is no need of self-defense or security. That's when one lives. That's when small petty concerns do not matter that much. I don't know whether I have been communicative enough, but I just tried.
Okay. We have a question from Ayushi. Ayushi, I'll pin you. Yes, Ayushi, you may proceed with your question.
Namaskar, Acharya.
Namaskar.
So, as you said earlier, that think up to the point when thoughts are going to be stopped or exhaust or their purpose going to fulfill. But when we do this in a meditative state, then this is the most hard part. Like thoughts are at that time, thoughts are never ending situation. So like how to?
No, thoughts have already ended. Thoughts have already ended. They are just repeating themselves in a cycle. And that's when you should catch them. That's when you should know that your equipment is not serving you anymore. Thought is great as long as it's making some progress. But if the challenge is big and important enough, thought very soon succumbs. But thought by its nature is not very honest. It won't readily admit that it can't help you anymore. So what does it do? It starts running about in circles. You think of A, and that leads to a thought about B, and that leads to a thought about C, and that leads to again a thought about A, and then again B, and again C, and then again A. Have you experienced this kind of cyclical thinking? When this starts happening, then it should be possible for you to just dismiss the whole movement of thought and say, no, you are not helping me anymore. What do you do with a taxi driver that's taking you around in circles? Does it help you? Or when you write a computer program and some fault in coding has resulted in a cyclical movement. Line 20 says, go to line 50. And line 50 in some way says, go to line 10. And the program is stuck in an endless iteration there. What do? You don't allow it to continue, right? You say, sir, you're not serving any good purpose. So please stop. Have some honesty. You exist to serve me. I don't exist to bear and tolerate you. You are my equipment. You are a means to an end. You're not the end itself. But that's the dishonesty of thought. It tells you it will take you to a particular end. And very shrewdly, very deceptively, it becomes itself the end. It keeps telling you, come, ride over me. I'm taking you somewhere. As if the end is a place separate from thought, different from thought. But if you are sharp enough, you'll realize that thought very soon becomes its own purpose, its own end. It wants to endlessly continue. The I tendency that we have, on one hand, wants to come to an end, wants to sublimate, dissolve, become fulfilled, whatever you call it. On the other hand, it conspires against itself. In a superficial sense, it realizes that it must reach the destination and end. But somewhere it is so afraid or ignorant that it doesn't want to end. It wants to just endlessly continue. The process of counseling the ego tendency, or tricking it, or educating it, or working hard on it, is the process of spirituality. That's what you call as working upon yourself. When you work upon yourself, you are essentially addressing your own inner dishonesties. You're asking yourself, why do I need to believe in behave in self-defeating ways? Why do I need to believe in self-destructing concepts? Why do I need to be my own enemy? That's what is spiritual quest or inquiry or sadhana.
Okay.
Yes.
We have a question by Praveen. Praveen, I'm pinning you.
Acharya, my question is regarding how. Like you answered that specifically when the thoughts are regarding our addictions. For example, I have
Please repeat.
my question is about how to do this specifically when thoughts are about my addictions. When I'm trapped in the addiction, for example, if I'm addicted to smoking or I'm addicted to watching videos, what I have got from your previous answer is it's through valor and through intelligence, but it become more hard when I'm trapped in my addictions. Can you help me with this? When the addictions are involved?
You see, you have to first of all respect the fact of your addictions. They are doing you some good. Those things you are addicted to exist because you have nothing better in your life. Understand this. No point just cursing one's addictions. Addictions exist to fill a deep inner void. You have a need to be addicted. And that's why those things exist, be it, whatever TV shows or videos or drugs or many other things one can be addicted to. So they didn't plead to you to let them into your life. You went to those things. The videos don't just suddenly pounce at you from your mobile screen after midnight. You must be clicking at the application and scrolling through the list of videos and then choosing one particular video and then choosing another and binge watching. And so you are the one who is going to those things. Why are you going to those things? That's what spirituality is about. Look into yourself. Why do you need to go to those things? You need to go to those things because there is a crying hollow. Unless you bring something higher into your life to fill that hollow, those videos and other things will continue to exist, irrespective of how much we beat our chest over them. Get something into your life that you know to be more important than those little things. And I refuse to believe that a young man of your intellectual caliber cannot think of something worthier to pursue. Set your mind upon something good, high, noble. And then you will find that you have no time for all the petty things that surround you and can potentially attract your attention. Your attention will then be super focused. You know what is important and you don't want to look at other things. And if sometimes mistakenly you happen to look at other things, you realize that a lot of damage has been done and you are taught a lesson, and next time you don't repeat your mistake because the loss is right there in front of you. It stares you in the face. It teases you. You cannot look at yourself in the mirror. You say, because I wasted myself in all the nonsense for 4 hours or 8 hours, therefore I've had to suffer this loss. And the loss is a fact. I can't deny that. And the loss is big. So, what you call as distractions are very intimately related to purposelessness. You cannot be distracted without being purposeless. Have a solid purpose in life and fall in love with it. And all these distractions will vaporize into thin air. Am I making sense? Are we together?
Very much, Acharya. This was
So you don't even require to be counseled. Ask yourself, what is the highest you can think of? What is the most beautiful you can think of? And why is it not worth committing yourself to? If it is indeed high and beautiful, give yourself totally to it. Yes? And then, even if you have to go to, you said Netflix, etc., you'll go with a purpose. It's not some kind of a heinous crime to watch videos or something. But you will remember the purpose. You will know why you are going there. You're not going there to waste precious time. Sorry. Even in there, the mind somewhere is remembering what the purpose is. Why are you watching something? There is a lesson. There is a learning somewhere, and that's why you are watching that. So, wisdom is not about do's and don'ts. Do all the good things, read books, read newspapers, read wisdom literature, meet good people, travel to beautiful places, and don't do bad things. Booze, drugs, sex. No, this is not to be done. This is not spirituality. This is just very superficial and jaded kind of morality. To be spiritual is to know what your central need is, and then chase it wholeheartedly. Spirituality is thrill and adventure. And you don't mind what your chase leads you into. It takes you to riches, you travel through riches. It takes you to poverty, penury, you don't resist being a beggar for a while at least. It takes you for a while into an existence of solitude. You don't mind being alone. It requires you to move into public life. You accept that without resistance. None of all these things are important. What's important is that you identify your purpose in life and live only for its sake. All else is trivia. And when I'm talking of purpose, please hear, I'm talking of the right purpose. I'm talking of the central purpose of life. In determining the purpose, one has to be extremely mindful, attentive, deep, and honest.
Acharya, may I add the same question?
Yes, please.
Regarding purpose, Acharya, for me, it is more meditation. It gives me the immense pleasure, but it also makes me disinterested towards other activities of my life. And is this okay? And because it also affects my social interactions, my family responsibilities, my academics also.
You have to ask yourself. Ultimately, you are the judge. It's the pleasure that you get through these videos or addictions, the highest that you can get. And if you will, with conviction, say, this is the highest pleasure possible to me in life, I'll say, go ahead and just drench yourself in your addictions. Because what I'm calling as the purpose of life is also in another way called as joy. In one sense, joy is not pleasure. In another sense, joy is beyond pleasure. In another sense, joy is the highest pleasure possible. So, very crudely speaking, yes, top class pleasure is indeed the purpose of life. But the pleasure that you are getting through your addictions, is that really top class? Only you can answer. And I leave it to you. How can it be top class if it is leaving you mired in guilt? How can it be top class if it is not giving you clarity about stuff? You do not know how to choose between your responsibilities and your self-interest. You probably also do not know what responsibility really means. One characteristic of joy is that it comes with clarity. And that's the difference between pleasure and joy. Pleasure requires the sacrifice of clarity. You typically get pleasure only when you are in a drunken and befuddled state of mind. Otherwise, pleasure is not possible. Look at people when they are having pleasure. Are those the moments of their utmost clarity? Are those the moments of their deep wisdom? In fact, people get drunk specifically to have pleasure. That's the thing with pleasure. It cannot coexist with clarity. Joy, on the other hand, is an inseparable accompaniment of clarity. Joy and clarity are the same thing. If your pleasures are not bringing clarity to you, then there is a lot of work you still need to do. Don't get stuck. I can only assure you from my position that higher pleasures are indeed possible, and that it is your responsibility towards yourself to go for those higher pleasures. When better things are possible in life, why settle for lowly ones? Makes no sense, right? You have one life. Never settle down. Keep aiming for the higher than the highest you have known. And irrespective of how high you have come, something higher still remains and beckons. Respond to its call. Lack of exposure is probably a problem. Lack of spiritual education and lack of right company is probably a problem. Probably the set of options you are making your choices from is a very limited one. Probably you have no exposure to what all is possible in life. Therefore, of the 5 little things that you know of, you are choosing one to get addicted to. Life is way beyond the 5 things that you keep expanding your horizons. Never settle down for something small. Your nature is infinite, and that has not been said without reason. It was a call to keep reminding you that you must keep moving. Charaiveti, charaiveti. Infinity is not a point to be ever reached. Yes, please.
Savita, you can go ahead with your question.
Namaste Acharya ji. My name is Savita. I am a PhD student in Department of Mathematics. So we have talked about how to about mind, brain, and all these things. So we all know that things are good, and as we discussed about that, if we have a better and beautiful goal in our life, then we should not be distracted in our life. So how to train our mind so that we have a say over our senses, or we have a say over our thoughts? Suppose we know that we have a aim, we have to achieve it, and let's say, and for example, waking up early is a good habit, but then also still in the night many thoughts will come up and we'll keep on watching some videos, or we'll just pass time on Netflix, and then after some time we regret the same. So how to get out of this cycle?
Don't sleep at all. Don't sleep at all. There would be no problem such as waking up at the right time or missing waking up at the right time. See, you cannot be trained into these things. It's a matter of love. The thing is that our entire system, our education, our neighborhood, the way we are brought up, it stifles all spontaneity. In fact, we become afraid of our spontaneity. More so, if I may say, as a woman. So we want to be educated even in love. We want to be trained even in these matters. If you know something is right, if you really know something is right, you just do it. You don't wait to be trained for it, no? Or maybe this is something I just cannot wrap my head on. But I've always failed to comprehend how one can claim that one knows something to be right and still does not do it or does not commit herself to it. The only explanation can be that you really do not know it fully yet. And knowing something cannot really happen without coming very close to that thing. To come close to something is to drop what you know about that thing, your images of that thing, and to really be intimate with it. That's love. And when love is there, then you just bulldoze your habits, your tendencies, and such things. Maybe you cannot force yourself to sleep at the right time, 10 p.m., 11 p.m. But you know that getting up in the morning is something of beauty, something of love. So what do you do then? You say, fine. If I can't get up at the right time, I won't sleep at all. Let these habits do what they want to do. I will do what I want to do. The habits tell me we will not allow you to sleep at the right time. And I'm telling the habits, I don't mind whether I sleep or not. I must be awake at 5 a.m. because sunrise is just so special. So if you'll keep me awake till 2:30 in the morning, I'll say fine, 2.5 hours more. I won't sleep at all. And funnily, if you wake through the entire night, next day you find that you are anyway sleepy at 8 p.m. So you'll have to just crash on your bed. See, these two things are concurrent. That's a law. Real knowledge and real action. If you find someone saying, I know, but I cannot act, then you must immediately know that the fellow does not know. Had he really known, he would have become helpless. Real knowledge, you could call it realization, renders you totally helpless. Your free will is gone. The choosing agency, the ego, is no more. It has surrendered. It has surrendered to the immensity, the beauty, the reality of what you have just known. Now you are left optionless. You don't have a choice to not to act. You will have to act. And if you repeatedly find yourself not acting, then go close to the thing you claim to know of. There is still some distance. You need to bridge that. Am I making sense, or am just being too poetic or something?
Yes, certainly. It is very beautifully explained. So I just want to know that how to go close about it. As you said that go and know about the same, know the benefits. If you are not acting on what you know, that means you are still very like a little distance of that thing.
There must be some object you are referring to. Ask yourself, do I really know that object? That object could be sunrise. That object could be the fact that you want to jog. That object could be a purpose in life. That object could be a person. If you say that particular object exists and still you cannot act decisively with respect to that object, then tell yourself that you do not know that object. Once you know something, there are no two options left. You either act or you don't act. Either you say, I will get up at 5 a.m. come what may, or you say it's not worth it. I'm not getting up. You don't remain lumbering on that petty middle path kind of thing where you say, I want to get up, I'm still not getting up. And finally, somehow you drag yourself out of the bed at 7:30 a.m. No, none of that. So my advice is, if you set targets for yourself, and you find that you are repeatedly distracted in pursuit of those targets, honestly ask yourself, are those targets even worth it? Maybe you are just going for those targets due to social pressure, or in your ignorance, or in some kind of fear. And that's why all the inner power is not coming into play. Yourself is not assisting you with its boundless energy, because the self does not act as per the dictates of the world. The only thing that can make it move is true love. Or you could say true realization, crystal clear knowing. And then it moves, and the power is awesome. You forget all these things about sleeping, eating, bathing, this, that, looking good, being in others' good books, maintaining your personality as it is. All these things just disappear. Only one thing remains, the thing that is important, and you commit yourself totally to it. And you're not bothered about other things then. So know fully, and keep knowing till your knowledge becomes loving action. And my advice to you as a young student is, don't get into things that you have not really understood. There can never be perfect understanding. One can never be 100% clear on anything. But to the maximum extent possible, seek clarity. And that will solve a lot of problems. Clarity will become your driver. You won't need to be motivated. You don't need to push yourself anymore. See, I would be sounding strange, I know, but I'm doing my best to be comprehensible. Beyond this is action and practice. Beyond this, words and counseling cannot help. Beyond this, you have to really act and do it on your own.
Next, we have a question from B. Sai Akili. You may go ahead and ask your question.
Namaste, Ajay. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please.
Yeah. Sir, so you were mentioning that sometimes thought gets into a loop, mind gets into a loop, or thought gets into a loop just to sustain itself. Now, this calls for us to be vigilant of it. So what comes out of mind is generally emotions, feelings, likes, dislikes, thoughts. So we need to be vigilant so that we don't get caught up in that. Now, this procedure is a long procedure. So are there some of the things like, okay, if this kind of feelings come, you can trust it, and these kind of feelings, you should not trust it. Or all the feelings should be in a vigilante mode, we should observe them.
No. You don't need to crush anything. You don't need to follow any instruction manual of this kind. You just need to know that you live for a reason, that you exist for a purpose. If feelings are aligned to that purpose, feelings are so beautiful. So much of art is deeply related to feelings and emotions. Even loneliness and melancholy. You don't need to crush feelings. Equally, you don't need to support certain other kinds of feelings. Feelings can have immense beauty. Spirituality is not about being feelingless. The saints are known to have profusely cried on several instances. In fact, the saints would be reduced to tears more easily and more frequently than our common man. It's not as if they were devoid of feelings. If you go through bhakti literature from the Madhyakal, the Middle Ages, there is such abundance of beautiful feeling. It says that the feeling is not directed at trivia. If I am emotional, how do I help it? It's there in my genes. But one thing I do have choice over. I will not be emotional over petty things and wrong things. I will channelize my emotion into something worth it. If I am more of a thinking person, my thought will be directed towards solving the puzzle of life. If I am more of an emotional person, then with all my emotions, I will sing, beg, ask, what is going on and how do I be liberated? What is worth falling in love with and why don't I have it? So the object will be right. And having the right object for whatever you have is called dhyan. That itself is the right and most useful definition of dhyan. Target, the dhyaya, has to be the highest. Now, as you target it, there might be several personal ways to reach it. In fact, ways will have to be personal. An educated man will have one way, an uneducated man will have another way. Young man, old man, a woman, a girl, a boy, an Indian, an American. The ways will be different. However, the target must be right, as high as possible. Some people are just too given to dancing. There are others who just cannot dance. There are kids who start dancing as soon as they can start moving on their two legs. There are others who just cannot dance. There are some who sing. There are some who talk so much. There are some who like to keep to themselves. All these are prakritic tendencies. They are there in your body. Whatsoever is there in your body has to be given its right purpose. I love to dance. The dance must take me to that the highest. I love to sit quietly. My quietness must take me to that the highest. I love to read. My reading must take me to that the highest. I'll not just read for reading's sake. I'll not say I'm a reader and have read 4,000 books. And what do those 4,000 books amount to? Trivia, and more trivia. None of that. Am I making sense? But
Yes,
at least,
Okay. Now we have Vishnu. Vishnu, you can go ahead with your question.
Namaskaram, Acharyaji. Am I audible?
yes.
Acharyaji, my question, since we talked about addictions and various other things, my question is essentially around, I'm going to talk about my personal experiences and probably ask my question. Man is typically a social animal. We seek to actually coexist with the society, right? And to do that, humans actually try to mimic the others into habits. Let's say drinking or smoking or any other things. For me personally, I as a student, I would see many students going into these habits. I don't feel any peer pressure into that. I'm a vegan, and many people around me are not, and it's a difficulty for me. And that peer pressure doesn't really make me get into those habits. But most often I want to speak out my thoughts. And I want to, let's say, go into animal activism. But then this fear of, if I speak out these, I'm anyway kind of seen as an outcast because I'm not, going into these habits. And if I speak out, I may be, more farther away from being accepted by my friends or the family. So this fear kind of stops me in doing what I want to really do, express myself. How do you think that I can, be devoid of this fear and be kind of free of this?
Let me understand what you're saying. You are saying you love animal activism, but you cannot openly speak of it because of peer pressure. Is that what you're saying?
Uh, kind of, sir. So I mean, I'm trying to say that. I mean, I would like to express my thoughts. I would want to do animal activism or any other things, but then out of not only peer pressure, out of the fear that if I speak out, I'll be judged even more because I'm not doing the other activities that my peers are doing. Out of that fear, I'm really not doing so, like going forward. So that fear kind of stops me from this path.
See, this is the typical nature of the ego mind. It wants to change things with the things remaining within its old unchanged structure paradigm. I will explain, don't worry. So you have a structure, and what is that structure? You are there and you are surrounded by your peers, your friends, your family, your social media network. That's what surrounds you, right? Now you want to bring about a change. What's change you want to bring about? In the middle of this structure, there is you who is not an animal activist currently, right? You want to change the center. You say, I'm not an animal activist, but I think it's the right thing to do. So I'll be an animal activist. I'll change the center. Even as you want to change the center, you want to keep the entire structure intact and unchanged. You want to say, my friends will continue to be the same. My peers will remain the same. The ones I speak to and share thoughts with will remain the same. All that will remain the same. With all that remaining the same, I will change. Now, how is that going to happen? You really want to change, or are you conspiring against change?
Because I want to change. Yes, sir.
If you want to change, then why do you want to keep the structure intact? How many people do you know of? Maybe 20, maybe 200, maybe 2,000? That's the upper limit. Why must you speak of cruelty towards animals and other things that are valuable to only these 20 or 2,000 people? The world has 800 crore people. But you want to retain this little group, this little gathering, this coterie of 20 or 200. Why do you want to retain them? Because you're identified with them. But the thing is, if your surroundings and your metastructure remains the same, then you too will remain the same. That structure will not allow you to change. It's these very people who are so aversive to listening to anything worthwhile that they have struck fear in your mind. Your cause is worthy. You're standing for something worth it. But see how afraid you are. You are saying, I cannot open up in front of them. Think of the quality of these people that you cannot open up on worthy topics in front of them.
I fear mockery. I fear being.
Yeah, of course, they will mock you. They will jeer and sneer at you. But if that's the quality, my question to you is, why do you want to retain them? Why exactly do you want to talk of these important things to only this small group of people? The world is your playground. I'm not saying that you break up with them or you just kick them away. Nothing so dramatic. But right things must be done at the right places. Hmm? Are you a student?
Yes, sir. I'm pursuing my MBA in IIT Bombay in first year.
So you are pursuing MBA. Do you start talking of normal and poison distribution with your family, with your aunts and uncles?
No.
You talk of these things to them. So everything has a right place. If you don't do it or take it up at its right place, then you don't want to do justice to that thing. Right? Would you sit with your mother and discuss Kotler? You won't do that, right? And then come complaining, my mother doesn't appreciate Kotler.
True, sir.
That's not the place where these things ought to be taken up. So don't be so particular about moving only within your pre-existing circle. If your cause is worth it, show some courage and move out. If you have a tender and precious sapling in your palm, would you plant it in a desert? No, you'll search for the right place to plant it. So search for the right place where people are receptive to your thoughts, ideas, and actions. Start there.
Thanks a lot, sir. I think great.
Okay, Shreyash, you have a counter question. You can go ahead with your question.
Yeah, namaskar, Acharya ji.
Namaste.
I have this question about the argument of purpose and higher purpose that you talked about. So I have this example that I was just thinking about.
Your voice has broken off.
Hello? Am I audible now, Acharya ji?
I think there is some network problem.
Can you hear me now?
There seems to be some network problem. We'll just hold on till it gets fixed.
Yeah, sure. Can I go ahead now?
Yes, please.
Yes, so I was asking about purpose and finding a higher purpose. So I was just thinking about this example. If for example, if I'm a mountaineer and I've just started on climbing mountains and I wish to climb maybe the highest peak in my state, for example, is my purpose currently. And then as I achieve that purpose, since I have the knowledge that there are higher peaks than those, because of whatever the source be, because of some books or someone who has discovered that there is a higher peak. So I gradually shift to that higher purpose. Maybe I again then go towards climbing Mount Everest, etc. But how do you find such higher purpose on the spiritual plane if you don't know how to acquire that knowledge and how to act in that direction.
Begin from where you are. Your purpose does not come from a vacuum. You are the context of your purpose. So look at yourself. What are your bondages? What is it that troubles you? What is it that you're afraid of? What is it that you're very desirous of? Start from there. There is nobody who is not suffering. There is nobody who doesn't have an inner angst. There is nobody who does not have unfulfilled desires. And if these exist as troubles, obviously, what will be our purpose? Straight away, to get rid of these troubles, right? There can be no other purpose. You are the purpose. Your own welfare is the purpose. Are you getting it? So you start from there. What is my current state? And hence, what do I need? And that need becomes the purpose. But for you to realize that need, you need to be very honest to yourself. You need to admit your fears. You need to admit your inadequacies. You need to admit what haunts you. You need to admit your real pain points. And that determines your purpose. This is what exists in my life. And if this exists, it's pointless running after other things. If I have a heartache, and I'm running after luxury cars, then at some point I might find myself in a luxury car with heartaches. What's the point? The car is outside. The ache is inside. The car is fleeting. I'm sometimes within it, sometimes I'm not. The ache is constant. So one thinks clearly and honestly of his situation, and from there arises the purpose. Do not determine your purposes by looking at the market or the opportunities that the world offers. No, that's what most people do, and that's not a wise way. Your purpose, what you want to do in life, or at least right now in life, must be determined by your own current state. And remember, that's your own particular personal current state. Nobody else even fully knows about it. So how can your purposes come from others or imitation of others? See, what is it? I'm repeating. That bugs you, and don't hide or suppress it. Tell yourself that ultimately one has to live with himself. And if there is some pain within, it's not worth living with it. I'll address it. And that becomes the purpose. And so on and so forth.
And then how do you... Yeah, but then how do you proceed towards the purpose? How do you act?
You use all the resources that you have, your intellect, your education, your money, your muscles. Whatever you have, you devote it to that purpose. What else are you getting educated for? What is your knowledge for? What is your intellect for? Why can't you think your way through your situation? So honestly realize where you stand. And then commit all your resources, your entire being, towards resolution of your conflict. Knowledge is not meant to offer you riches or comforts. Even if they come, they are secondary. The real purpose of knowledge is to bring you to an inner fulfillment. That is the purpose of life. Irrespective of whether you are studying psychology or mathematics or management, remember what the purpose of your knowledge is. Knowledge, obviously, most of us think is meant to yield money and position. No, that's not the purpose really. Even if that is a purpose, that is a secondary purpose. That cannot be the real thing. When you buy a car, the purpose is not to have good air conditioning. Or is it? You buy a car so that it takes you to your destination.
From point A to B, yeah.
Air conditioning is a nice thing. Makes the
It's just a byproduct of me sitting in the car. Yeah.
Yes. It makes the whole thing easier. But air conditioning is not what you sit in the car for. And if you are one of those who buy a car to enjoy the AC, then you're not reaching anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you, Acharya.
I suppose Brahadaranyaka Upanishad, I will initiate next session onwards, or Chandogya Upanishad. We can take more questions if there are any from the participants within the campus or outside the campus. I'll begin with the Shanti part next session onwards.
Okay. Next we have Chitra ji. Chitra ji, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yes. Pranam Acharya ji. I am Chitra Kadam. I am a software developer. I have two questions. First question is that sometimes we have thoughts which causes us pain. We can call it a painful thoughts. We understand this, but we are not able to overcome these thoughts. And as in the beginning you have said that whatever thoughts the mind have, actually it sees some benefit in it. That's why it continue to exist. So I want to know what benefit the mind sees in painful thoughts. Also, is it a tactic of a ego to keep it alive, keep itself alive through the pain, even through the painful thoughts? I mean, is it seeking a pleasure of being alive even in the pain? So this is my first question.
Yes, obvious. Yes, obviously. The thing with pain is you cannot have pain if you don't exist. So even pain ratifies your existence. The ego is such an insecure thing that to prove to itself that it exists, it can even put itself in pain. And it says, because I can experience pain, so I exist. Don't tell me that I am fake. Don't tell me I am a myth. Because you see, ultimately the ego is a myth. And therefore it's always scared. Somebody will call the bluff. Somebody will say, oh, you're such a fool. You don't even exist. So it keeps trying all kinds of tricks. That's the first thing. Next, you remember the pain that comes with thoughts. What you don't remember is something more important. Let's say you remember that you lost rupees 100 in the past. And that pains you. Whenever the memory flashes, you find there is the experience of pain. You lost rupees 100 in the past. Let's say right now you are in the thought process. You're repeatedly thinking about those 100 rupees you lost in the past and experiencing pain. At this moment, if I tell you that right now you are about to lose rupees 10,000, what will you do? Or what will happen to you rather?
I'll come out of that previous thought and take action for the current situation.
Exactly. The past is of very little value compared to the present. Equally, the loss you might have suffered in the past is of very little value compared to the loss you are about to suffer right now and are in fact suffering every passing moment. And why exactly are you suffering the loss every passing moment? Because you are too busy and lost experiencing the pain of the past. You are so focused on the past losses that you have just no cognizance of what you are currently and continuously losing on. The loss right now is tremendous. You can express that loss in various ways. It's an opportunity loss. Much better could have been done. You wasted that time in self-pity and melancholy. You could call it a time loss. You could call it an energy loss. You could call it the loss of one's very life. So I'm not saying that the loss in the past didn't happen or that it had no value at all. Obviously, we all suffer as we live our lives, and there are memories and trauma and suffering and so much, and there is no person who has not suffered and is not suffering. The question is different. The question is it so that you have suffered in the past and the suffering has come to an end? No, the suffering is continuing. And by thinking of that loss, you are amplifying the suffering. Are you getting it? See, it's like this. You're driving your car on a highway, right? And you brush against a bike, right? Some paint from your bumper comes off. And it is indeed a loss. One doesn't deny. And now we're continuously thinking of it. Continuously thinking of what the bike rider was doing, what you were doing, and who was at fault, and how it could have been avoided, and how much money you'll need to spend to get the bumper painted again, and these things, and you are continuously in it. And what is approaching you from the front? A 16-wheeler truck. Now, what should I think of? The loss that has happened or the loss that is about to happen?
Loss that is about to happen.
And it's not as if the truck isn't honking. But you're lost. Right? So much is at stake right now. Better be cautious. Take care of it. You have an immense treasure. Somebody stole from it a little bit in the past. But still so much of it remains. So much of it. You could say the entirety of it remains. But you are at the risk of losing it if you don't wake up.
But Acharyaji, when I say pain, it's not always related to the past incidents or past pain, maybe current situations also. So What about that?
If current situations have pain, ask yourself what makes you bear that pain. If you are bearing the pain to preserve your bondages, then you are on your own enemy. If you are bearing the pain to fight your bondages, then the pain is worth it.
Yes.
Pain is unavoidable. Pain is the very fact of life. The question is, what is it that you suffer the pain for? And believe me, there is nobody who doesn't have to suffer. I don't have to convince you. You know that very well, right? Look around yourself. What do you see? If you look honestly and deeply enough, you will see a lot of suffering. So suffering is suffer for the right cause. That's the best you can do. The solution to suffering is not a state of no suffering. The solution to suffering is right suffering. And to complete the story, I would say, if you suffer rightly, then slowly your tendency to suffer keeps reducing. And probably, potentially, one day you can come to a point where you don't suffer, but one need not think of it. Where you stand, as things are, just think of choosing the right suffering. Most people suffer in a way that exacerbates the suffering. Most people are their own enemies. Challenge your suffering. Ask what it is doing to you. After each day of suffering, are you more prone to suffering or are you getting liberated? Is the suffering helping you or pushing you deeper into itself? Is it too abstract?
No, I'm getting it.
Choose the right suffering. I repeat, just take this home. Choose the right suffering.
Thank you, Acharya. My second question is, I want to know, as we have been discussing about mind and thoughts. So the diet which we follow, either vegetarian, non-vegetarian, or even veganism, does it have any connection? Does in any way it impacts our mind? Or I have turned vegan after coming in contact with you, but I want to know this. How does it impact us?
The connection is the other way around. Your mind decides your diet. So when you look at your diet, you come to know of your mind. A lot of people talk of the impact of the diet on the mind. I don't think that's a very useful way of looking at it. When you look at your diet, it's not your diet you're looking at, it's your mind you're looking at. A diet is a choice, right? The chooser is the mind. Just like all your choices, what you eat reflects who you are. So use your diet to know yourself.
Yes, so Acharya, in one of your lecture, I had heard this line that "Bura karm bure karta se nikalta hai." It's video stuck. Am I audible?
Yes, I think the video is stuck. We'll just hold on till it gets fixed.
Yes.
Okay, I think it's fine now. Chitra, you may continue.
Yes. So Acharya ji, in one of your lecture, I had heard this sentence that "बुरा कर्म बुरे कर्ता से निकलता है." Like a bad action will come from a bad doer always. So, but I want to know the bad action. Is it in cycle that that action even impacts the doer again and again? Like it will make him more worst. I was audible.
Acharya, I think you're muted.
Equally, right choices strengthen your resolve to make right choices. That's why abhyas or practice is so important. The more you are accustomed to making wrong choices, the more difficult it would be for you to just suddenly make a right choice. The entire momentum of the past will militate against rightness. That's why it's important to not to be casual with even little choices. They begin in a casual way and very soon become a habit. The ego is nothing but a habit, you know. What else is life? A battle between clarity and habit. On one hand, there is clarity regarding what you must do. On the other hand, there is the physical and social habit telling you to do something else. And these are always in conflict. Unfortunately, mostly habit prevails. And if the force of habit is so powerful, you better be cautious of it. Do not allow yourself to be habituated towards the wrong things. Sri Krishna talks of two central tenets of spirituality in the Bhagavad Gita: Vairagya and Abhyas. Be dissociated, be detached to make the right choice because you are attached to the wrong one. Therefore, detachment is needed to make the right choice. And then do it again and again. He says, be nirmam. Be hard-hearted towards yourself. Don't be in your own favor. Don't patronize yourself too much. Be nirmam. What does nirmam mean? Not identified with the self. And then keep practicing this thing because it's a very old habit, you know, evolutionary habit.
Thank you, Acharya.
Abhishek, you may go ahead and ask your question.
Namaskar, Acharya. My name is Abhishek Yadav. I was doing MTech from IIT, and recently I've joined Papa Atomic Research Center as a trainee scientific officer. So, as you mentioned about we are losing the time. That what bothers me, and in relation to, I want to ask in relation to the career. I am facing this conflict whether to continue my job or not, because the earlier what reasons I had for the job was money and position in the society, but it is no longer the reasons, which is why I am finding it difficult to continue the job. I find psychological problems are more important to be resolved. But at the same time, I'm facing this dilemma of public opinion what if I lose the job? Uh, should I, sir, continue with the job and find the purpose? Because these things are acting as an obstacle. I'm finding it as a career by continuing by being occupied with the job most of the time. I'm losing the time.
When you are serious about victory, you do not strike at the enemy without being fully prepared. Those who just plunge themselves into battles without having checked their preparedness are the ones who don't love victory too much. Right? Don't underestimate Maya. There was a reason you got into your current job. Public opinion, money, prestige, and all that. Have you so fully changed that these things won't matter to you anymore at all? No. So Maya smiles. Even as you contemplate your resignation and such things, she smiles. Well, she knows that you are not fully prepared in the inner sense. So you will resign and then regret the decision because you have just not thought of the consequences. When you are to fight Maya, you have to use all your resources, especially thought. Think of what you're going to do next. And don't overestimate yourself. Know that you still have a desire for social sanction and money and such things. So if you resign from here, have you prepared an adequate and a better option? Or do you just want to hop onto the road and become a job seeker and later on curse spirituality? And that happens with so many people, you know. In a moment of excitement, in a spiritual fit, they put in their papers. And then the entire life, they keep cursing all the spiritual teachers and the books, entire spirituality itself. Oh, I tried to be a rebel, a spiritual activist, and I did this, and see, I'm facing the consequences even till date. So be prepared for her recoil. She doesn't let her prey escape so easily. Caught in the web of corporate job, as you say, you are her prey. If you make a half-hearted attempt to escape, you will only hurt yourself. Such attempts should not be made at all till the moment you know that you will definitely succeed, or at least you have a very strong probability of success. So look for something that offers you a purposeful workplace, where your job entails doing something more fulfilling, and also a place that offers you at least average kind of decent money, because you're not a realized saint or something. A small paycheck will make you feel small, and then all spirituality will disappear. You have to be very practical in these things. So figure it out before you take the leap.
So it's just that what bothers me is the time is running out. So that was troubles me. I'm not able to concentrate in my job as well.
I fully well understand there is something pushing you to quit your job. I appreciate that. But I also know the power of man's inner tendencies. That's what I'm calling as Maya. Hmm? Today, because you have a decent paycheck, therefore you are thinking of job fulfillment and self-actualization and such things. It is because you already have decent money coming every month. The day that paycheck disappears, all your noble intentions will be at the risk of disappearance. Hmm? So if you think time is running out, then act swiftly. Swiftly you figure out a better alternative. But without having a better alternative, if you blindly jump into the unknown, chances are you will not be able to take the suffering and the consequences. I repeat, because this battle is important and because this battle must be won, therefore one must not make rash decisions. You getting it? If you want to hit a 6, you don't attempt that on every ball, do you? You wait to get settled and you wait for the bowler to make mistakes. At least some mistake. So you have all these things in your calculation, and then the moment comes when you lash out. That is if you are serious about winning the match. If you just want to have your 2 seconds of bravado, then you can do anything. Dance at the ball, slog, miss, clean bowled. I'm not discouraging you, right? I just want you to be adequately prepared. Because in youthful idealism, one rushes into decisions without being able to sustain them. Whatever you do must be sustainable. Are you getting it? So
Yes.
Take a little bit of time, prepare yourself well, figure out options, gather knowledge, do some research, so that the next place you go to is indeed better than the current one. If you just keep hopping without discretion, how do you know that the next place will not be equally bad or worse?
Yes, sir. So I'm getting your point. It's just that I'm not finding a valid reason to continue with the job, like money or position. So maybe I have to figure out what I have to do with the money or.
Yes, obviously. See, you are the best judge, obviously. If you think that you are in an inner position to just discard the money and other things right now, this moment, then put in your papers this moment. But mostly it does not happen. So I'm speaking from a generic point. I've seen a lot of youngsters make idealistic decisions and later regret them. I don't want that to be repeated again. But if you feel you are prepared, take the plunge. Bravo.
For this thing, I'm prepared, but for the public opinion, I have to be prepared for that also.
So prepare yourself well.
Yes. So
do your inner exercises.
Vatsalaji, you can ask your question. Vatsalaji, are you?
Sorry. Yeah. Pranam Acharyaji. My question is related to Abhyas that you mentioned in the previous answer. So in my experience, what's happening is that, I really like reading scriptures. So have been reading it for quite some time. But with time, what I've observed is that earlier there used to be a freshness and, it would stay with me. There was a sense of excitement also. Of late, I see that missing. So if I'm, if I face a situation, all that comes back to me. But that excitement and which used to give a hope that, okay, there is some change happening. So that seems to be missing. I'm not sure if it is just that I'm forgetting or, I'm becoming a little insensitive, not able to really read the situation. So if you could, help me out here.
You see, the nature of the mind must not be forgotten. Because the mind is never happy with itself, therefore it is looking for continuous change. It will look for change even in scriptures. And you cannot resist that. Because the mind will keep acting unhappy and dissatisfied even as you are reading the scripture. And the scripture is meant to be fed to the mind, and the mind becomes an unwilling recipient. So all that becomes very inefficient. You are reading, spending time, and the mind is not quite partaking in the process. So what do? You say, fine, you want change, I'll give you change. You don't need to read only one kind of scripture all the time. There is so much diversity even in spiritual literature. Even Vedanta has hundreds of texts. And then there are the Zen koan, there is a Sufi literature, there are the stories from European mystics. Obviously, you have the Chinese, the Japanese, you have Lao Tzu, Li Tzu. There's so much. Or you could go to the epics and see what they're trying to say. Or if the mind has become resistant to the written word itself, then why not watch maybe videos? Go to let's say Jiddu Krishnamurti. There is ample video content available. And if the mind is saying, I have a problem with the word itself, whether written or spoken, then attempt action. Spirituality or spiritual practice is not just about reading. It's also about acting. Act to learn. You're getting it? So
please elaborate. Act to learn.
The scripture is telling you that you have to challenge that within you which keeps you as you are. See how you can challenge it in action, whether at your workplace or at home, in the physical sense, in all senses that constitute your personality. Even in the sense of the clothes you wear, the company you keep, the way you manage your house, the way you look, the way you eat. How is the ego not finding a crystallized expression in our fixed diets? When we talk of the ego finding security in the past, one of the things that comes from there is our diet. Even challenging that might be a part of the spiritual process. But don't blame yourself. This is something that is bound to happen even with sincere seekers. The mind has a tendency to seek change even in the truth, because that's what the mind is, this tendency itself. So irrespective of how noble is the text you are reading, how great are the words, you will soon get kind of fed up and bored. Boredom, that's the one of the central descriptions of mind. It's always bored, but it can not take audacious steps to get rid of its boredom. Play games with the mind. Play games. Listen to music. There is so much of devotional music there. Listen to Kabir Amritwani. Listen to a recitation of the Guru Granth Sahib or the Ramcharitmanas. There are several ways to give the mind what it wants and still keep taking it in the right direction.
Thank you.
Kanika, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Namaste, Acharya-ji. Acharya-ji, I have many questions, but for now, I just wanted to ask. So, on my spiritual journey, I was led onto this journey through my personal relations, and as I keep going, and as I went ahead, and I keep going now, I am extremely curious, and I'm extremely attracted to what is there in store for me. But sometimes I suspect my motives, if I'm doing it for the highest, really, or if it's the personal relations that are propelling me on. And sometimes as I said, the attraction is just too much that I don't even care about this. But I'm really worried sometimes that is there a pitfall that I should be aware of in my situation?
See, the ego is such that it will never move towards the right thing with absolutely the right intention.
Yes.
Even to go towards the temple, it needs to be tempted with prasad, the sweets that the priests give you. Otherwise, the kids won't go to the temple at all. So you need not suspect that there is some problem or issue. Be convinced that there indeed is a problem. The problem is that you are approaching spiritual literature or spirituality itself because of personal reasons. That is indeed the case. Take that for granted. But there is no need to be disappointed because of it. That's the way we all are. I repeat, even to move to the highest, we need to be given some lowly reason. And blessed be the lowly reason that takes you to the highest. Right? Takes you to the highest and then excuses itself. Or takes you to the highest and then you find that there is no separation, because at the highest, there's that separation, conflict, all that anyway disappear. Right? So irrespective of what makes you move in the right direction, keep moving. And know fully well that there is nobody who ever got into spirituality because he wanted to disappear. You cannot tell the ego, I'm taking you to a place to die. You have to tell her, come, we'll have fun. You're not lying. The disappearance of ego is good fun. But you have to counsel her in a language she understands. You have to offer her a bait she'll accept. Right? And then at some point, you will say, I'm glad I have been cheated. Because there was no way to bring me to the right place without cheating me. That's how I am. Had somebody straight away told me, I'm holding your hand so that both of us, merge into dissolution, you would have never accepted to hold the hand. No? So a little bit of cheating is needed. Cheating in love, not cheating of a kind for self-interest. Blessed is such a cheat, I said. Later on, you thank him or her, whatever. Later on. In the middle of the journey, you keep cursing. The bugger has made my life hell, and I cursed the moment I got into a relationship and these things. But at some point, if you let the person stay alive till that moment, you'll thank him.
Vishnu, you can go ahead and ask your next question.
Namaskaram, Acharyaji. My question, you've also touched upon J. Krishnamurti, and this was the question I wanted to ask you in the session as well. I am actually reading one of his books called Freedom from the Known, where he talks about renouncing ego, and mainly what I am reading right now, he's talking about removing authority to be free from free in the ego, right? So I have two questions in this line of thought. What does he mean by the authority? Because most often than not, we can confuse ourselves with that authority and kind of remove everything to authority. I mean, if he say I'm removing all, I'm not going to take any authority. I can call anything.
Keep your pace a bit mild.
Sure, sir. So I'm trying to say that if I want to understand what is authority, meaning to say that we can take anything to be authority and then say this is, I'm not going to accept this, right? And then in the second line of thought, he talks about removing our personal authority as well from the past. Like he says that don't even have the authority of your past self. So the confusion I have here is most often than not in life we learn from our past experiences, we move forward from the past experiences. Is that not authorizing me? Is it not authority as such? And is there no dilemma in that? I just wanted to understand.
The definition of authority is anything that proclaims itself to be the truth in itself. That's called authority. Author means original. Authority means originality. Only the truth is original. The point from where everything comes. So when Krishnamurti says there is no authority, he means no object can be taken as the truth. Whether it's an inanimate object as a book or a living object as a guru, nobody is to be taken as the absolute truth. Right? Which is very fine. Obviously, the truth cannot come this way in a form. The truth cannot be objectified. It cannot stand in front of you as a thing or place or person or book or whatever. So, do not be too quick to accept your own assessments and judgments. When you fall for something, don't you take it to be real. Only the truth is real. When you are afraid of something, aren't you taking the thing as real? If you knew something is unreal, could you be afraid of it? So nothing is to be taken as the truth. Why? Because whatever you are seeing is being seen by you. To take a seen thing as the truth is to believe just too much in the capacity of the seer. Who's the seer? You are the seer. So to take anything as the truth is to be egoistic. I am saying this thing is the truth, therefore it is the truth. And that's what the ego wants to believe in. The ego says this world is real. If I have fallen for a woman, my love is real. If my dreams call me, beckon me, my dreams are indeed real, I must invest in them. Why all this? Because they are mine. The love affair is mine. The dreams are mine. The opinions are mine. Therefore, I want to take them as truthful. Now you see why he says, do not take your own likes, dislikes, experiences, and past as authority. Because they are yours. Whose experiences? Your experiences. Whose past? Your past. None of that is to be taken very seriously. Obviously, all that will exist. You cannot just dismiss it. But none of that is to be given the status of the truth. When something is given the status of the truth, it becomes unquestionable. Inquiry gets stifled. Whatsoever is there in front of you is in front of you. And you are no absolute. Therefore, whatsoever is there must be available to inquiry, investigation, questioning. When you are questioning something, you are seeing. In fact, you are not questioning that thing. You are questioning your own seeing. Because whatsoever that thing appears like and means to you is your own perception. All those meanings and appearances are in your own frame of reference. So when you question your own world, your own objects, you are in fact questioning yourself. That questioning cannot happen if you declare that you have already come to the truth. Never believe that the journey has ended. Never believe that the ego itself is the truth. Was I too swift even for you?
No, Acharyaji. And no, I just the same confusion still persists with me. Just an example, just a few minutes back, I talk very fast, right? And that's a mistake I did. And you've rectified my mistake, and I learned that probably I am speaking in a softer tone right now. And in the answer you said, don't give your past experience also the truth status. But I mean, that was the truth that I did speak. Authority. But so that is authorizing me to change my behavior, and I learned from that experience, right? So is in my past experience authorizing me right now to change myself? And I mean, that's how we grow as well. So that's a small confusion that still exists.
No, authorizing is not the same as taking something as authority. Equate authority with truth. Would you remember this? Equate authority with truth. That's why nothing is the authority. To authorize is to license or allow. That's another totally different thing. See, please understand this. Even though the ego or the self we believe in is classically and absolutely unreal, but to us, that is the only reality. What do? We can't hoodwink ourselves. We can't say, oh, the ego is false, therefore I'm not suffering, when actually I am. Doesn't matter how many times somebody like Jiddu Krishnamurti comes and teaches you the fallacy of the ego. Your suffering would still remain, right? So you have to work your way out of the ego through the ego, in the middle of the ego. And you have to say, well, all this is not the truth. But what do I do if everything in my body wants to take it as the truth? Therefore, what do? I'll start from where I am and investigate. Inquiry is the way. Tell the ego, all right, you are telling me you are real. And what does real mean? Unchanging, uninfluenced, not composed of fragments, timeless. You are telling me all these things about yourself. May I please inquire? I'm not absolutely off and dismissing you. I'm just asking, just asking. May I just ask? That's what. So don't unilaterally dismiss the ego, engage it. She keeps saying so many things. Talk to her. You're not to believe in her, and you are not to pretend that you don't believe in her at all. Because you do believe in her. We all do. Even if you believe in someone, can't you inquire? So tell that to the ego. Well, you are such a lovely lady, darling. But I just wanted to know a few things. Just asking. Why was your faith so different yesterday? No, I'm not alleging. I'm just asking. If you are so eternal, how has your face changed in matter of a day? Just asking. Just asking.
Yes, actually, thank you so much.
Yes, Abhilash-ji, you have a question, you can continue.
Yeah, Acharya, continuation of previous discussions. So it seems like the entire game is mind playing against itself. Like initially, it doesn't even look at itself. It just looks at things outside and keeps going by the trend or by the society norms or all that from the childhood. But then maybe because of certain teachings from teachers like you or certain books, suddenly it starts getting a indication to look at itself at some point. Now the one looking at itself is the same mind again, right? There is this mind which wants to look at outside and just be carried away with it, and there is this another mind which wants to, another segment of the mind or fragment of the mind which wants to listen to your teachings and try to inquire and find falsity in all these things. Now it looks like the game is almost rigged, right? Anytime mind can favor towards itself to strengthen itself rather than dismissing itself. Now initially it was when I started doing this, right, it was very obvious the mistakes that it is doing. Like say for example, it is falling for some attractive cloth or maybe attractive women or anything like that. It was very clear, like you just check 2-3 questions, you find it very clearly. But as we keep doing this further and further, I noticed that it kind of becomes very easy for it to conform to certain things, like let's say your teachings. It might just consume it and it may not really digest it and go through it fully. Rather, it might simply conform to it right away without even letting it fully digest and become part of me. So one trick I did at that time is to break certain patterns, go travel alone, or do some things like that, which will show again its falsity. Yeah. But again, I also noticed that since the game is played by the same mind, again it is becoming becoming a fanboy to you, and it is simply accepting things that is being told by you or told by Krishnamurti as though they are right, as though it has understood, rather than really experimenting. So this kind of tricks becomes very difficult, or at least for me, it is becoming very difficult to catch them and experiment and let it not easily conform. So any thoughts in this direction, Acharya?
Read non-spiritual literature. Get into things that you have declared as false, just as you have declared, let's say, Vedanta to be the truth. Remember that just as there is a chance that you are declaring Vedanta to be the truth without having really known it to be the truth, equally, you might be declaring a lot of other things as false without having known them to be false. So what do? Separation from those things keeps hiding the fact that you still do not know those things to be false. So go close to those things. Do all those things that you might have rejected or barred yourself from since the last 2 or 4 years. Read commercial literature. Read what consumerists do. See what is their philosophy. Expose yourself to be converted by them and see whether their attempts have any effect. Mind you, they will have some effect. And that will reveal to you why you are not still fully convinced of, let's say, Vedanta. So get into all these things. Read news and see whether you can detect with precision what really is going on. I strictly dislike spiritual people abhorring the world or rejecting it or not being in knowledge of it. You don't have to consume the world, but at least know how the world functions and what all is going on. And then see whether you are totally effect proof. I'm advising in advance, there would be some effect. Visit a tempting shopping mall, some expensive place, see all the glittering stuff there. See what it is doing to your senses. See how people are operating. At some point, you will find yourself moving towards one of the items. Don't resist. Inquire what is it that you find tempting in all that. And mind you, we are not talking in language of one thing being bad versus one thing being good. We want to find out. It is actually very much possible that when you visit that shopping center, you actually return with 2 or 3 items that you actually needed. Not that it's your money gone waste. So read all these things, visit all these places, engage the other kind of people. The more you keep them away behind the boundary of otherness, the more you will fail to realize that they still exist within you. To what extent they still exist within you, you will know only when you are with them. Be a part of one of the usual upper middle class weddings. Check whether you too are being tempted to join the dance floor or be a part of one of the family pics, whether all the lights and the decoration and the glids is having an effect on you. All that has to be seen. None of that has to be abhorred. I'll tell you a little secret. It's a dangerous secret, but I think you have come far enough to know it. A point comes when you are in that wedding, and instead of falling prey to that wedding, you stand there thinking how you can use all of this towards the right purpose. It's like being surrounded by enemies with guns. And you look at your enemies, and instead of being afraid or something, you find yourself thinking how their guns can be utilized for the right purpose. You don't want to destroy their guns. You want to carry their guns home because you need those guns. It's a lousy warrior if he just kills the enemies and leaves their weapons behind. Those lights, that decoration, that glamour, all that affects the ego so much. Why can't we put it to the right use? But remember, this thing is dangerous because you never know when the thing you purport to use starts using you instead.
Correct.
So there is not something you should start practicing in a hurry or too early. It's just that a point comes. A point comes. Spirituality is about engaging with the world in the right way. It's not about rejecting this, abhorring that, not being here, not being there. Be everywhere. It's a war. All the territory is to be won. You must know your enemy. If you keep shying away, if you don't even want to look at your enemy, how will you know what your enemy is like? But I repeat, these things are not for beginners. If beginners keep frequenting wedding parties, they'll be carried away by the guns. Or you could say at gunpoint. Instead of bringing the guns home, you'll find that nobody returned home.
Yeah, maybe I'll experiment those things. Thank you.
But be very careful. Be very careful.
Sure.
Yes.
I think we are out of time now. So Shreyas can now go ahead with the closing address. Shreyas.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chatterjee. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who was instrumental in shaping today's discussion. It has been a very interactive and deep panel discussion, and I hope the panelists and the audience watching us live has got some outputs. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the session shall benefit them in one way or the other today or later. So I would like to take this opportunity, firstly, to thank Acharya for sparing time amidst this difficult situation to guide us on this complex yet important topic of meditation and the various concepts that evolved in the panel discussion, and not only to address the beginners but also those who are at a higher level than they started with. So my deepest gratitude to the whole team of Acharya and Acharya as well, and the team of Yogastha. I deeply express my gratitude for organizing this session. Secondly, I would like to also thank Dr. Anupam Chatterjee, who was very instrumental in bringing forward this theme and arranging this session. So my special thanks to him also. And I would like to take a few names again here from the team of Yogastha, Ramratan, Shivangi, and the other members. And finally, the panelists to bring forward such sharp and intellectual questions, which really paved the way for an even deeper discussion on the allied topics of meditation and which revolve around the spiritual plane. So thank you all for